Today is Monday, March 16th, 2026, and this is Read Through the Bible Recap Edition.
Yeah, we're going to look at the book of Ezra. Before doing so, we talked in this morning's podcast about the rain that was yesterday, and this afternoon we got to talk about the snow.
That's right. We've been having a blizzard.
That's right.
Hope everybody survived okay.
Yeah, for those of you in warm climates, enjoy your warm climate. That's not what we've got.
Yes, for sure.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to just go through Ezra. I think the biggest division of Ezra is after chapter 6. So chapters 1 through 6 deals with Zerubbabel.
Right, Zerubbabel built the temple.
Yep. And 7 through 10.
That deals with Ezra teaching the law.
Yep. And so, these are two waves of coming back to Jerusalem. Remember, the exiles, they are in Babylon, which then Persia took over Babylon. And so now they are in Persia. And in chapter 1, a micro summary you just had.
I had, what did I have? Cyrus's decree.
Yep. It's the decree to return. That's a good summary right there. So Cyrus just basically said, hey, people of Israel, you want to go back to Jerusalem? You can. And chapter 2 is...
it's the list of returning exiles, about 50,000.
Yeah. So kind of just everyone who's going to come back, 50,000 people took up the deal.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of people coming back.
It's a big group to travel together.
Yep. Okay, and so then they're back, and then in chapter 3...
the altar rebuilt and temple foundation laid.
Yeah, so they're starting. And so the first thing is the altar, and then they're laying the foundation for the temple.
Right.
And I think what's really helpful, even when we finished 2 Chronicles, there was so much of an emphasis upon when the kings came in, they just revamped worship. And when the exiles return, the very first thing they do is they build this altar and lay the foundation of the temple. Okay, but then they run into some trouble in chapter 4.
Okay, local help rejected, and then Artaxerxes' rights stop.
Yeah, and then there's some people that just say, hey, we'll help you. And said, no, we don't want your help.
Right.
And they stirred up a letter that says, no, you got to stop. And so they sent the letter to Artaxerxes.
Right, and he bought into it and said, oh, yeah, you better stop.
Yep. Okay, then I love the rebellion in chapter 5. I'm not sure if it's really rebellion, but it's sort of the character of the prophets.
Oh, yeah. So in 5, Haggai and Zechariah encourage rebuilding. And then an inquiry sent to Darius.
Yeah, so that's not a real short summary. But I wanted to capture the names Haggai and Zechariah here because they're prophets and we have what they wrote.
Right, yes. And they were, I think, instrumental in encouraging the Jews to resume their rebuilding of the temple.
Yep.
In spite of the opposition, in spite of Artaxerxes' decree, he just said, just start building.
Yeah, and so that would be a fine summary right there. But then this inquiry is sent to Darius, who then looks into the archives. In chapter 6, he finds in the archives, what's the summary there?
Darius confirms decree, temple finished, Passover.
Yeah. And everybody's happy. Kind of concludes that's the first half. That's a great story.
Chapter 6 is a very happy ending.
Yeah.
Well, partial ending.
Yep.
Because Darius, it's really almost miraculous that Darius is able to find the scroll with the decree, and he totally supports it, and then they're able to finish the temple and have a great celebration.
Yep. And then there's a big gap. 50, 60 years is what the gap is, and that was Zerubbabel, and now in chapter 7 we get Ezra.
Yep.
So in chapter 7...
Ezra is commissioned by Artaxerxes.
Yeah, so there's a different Artaxerxes than in chapter 4.
Right.
Artaxerxes is like a title, like president, or maybe the Artaxerxes family, or Pharaoh would be a good illustration of that. And he was basically commissioned. And there's some of chapter 7 which speaks about him arriving in Jerusalem, kind of gives a big overview. But then chapter 8 is the travel day, or you can put chapter 8.
Ezra's return journey.
Yeah.
For 8.
And I love that story about how the good hand of the Lord was with them.
Yeah.
And they felt ashamed to ask the king for protection. And so they didn't, so they fasted and prayed instead. And God protected them, and they arrived in Jerusalem, all safe and sound, with all the gold that they had sent and everything. And so that's very happy as well. However, then after a little bit, Ezra discovers something in chapter 9.
Right. One more thing with chapter 8. It's a return journey, but it's also like a big, huge celebration.
Yeah.
Of offerings and worship.
Yep.
So then in chapter 9, Ezra confesses intermarriage sin, not of himself,
Right,
but of the
right.
people, because he finds out that they have been going right back to their old ways and intermarrying with the nations around them, which is what caused their downfall back before the exile. And so he though takes responsibility for it and prays in confession to God on behalf of the people.
Right. Okay, and then in chapter 10, we see the foreign marriages dissolved, which is really difficult. Like, just think about just all these marriages that they had. They corrected it. They make it right. These intermarriages are dissolved.
And
So-
it lists all of the people,
Who had
all of the men
intermarried.
who were guilty of this.
Yeah. And again, we talked this morning about just how you can't understand Ezra unless you understand the culture of the people and how important it was for the people to be pure, a line of Jews. And when it was wrong, they took the drastic step to make sure that it's right again and pure by basically divorcing a bunch of wives. It's really difficult. Okay, there is your shortened recap edition of Ezra. We will see you tomorrow in the book of Nehemiah.
All right,
Bye-bye.
goodbye.